What if the next global geopolitical crisis doesn't start in Ukraine? Not in the Middle East, but on a frozen island most people can't even point out on a map? Greenland, vast, icy, sparsely populated, is suddenly at the center of a power struggle involving the United States, Europe, NATO, Russia, and China. In recent weeks, tensions between the United States and Denmark over Greenland have escalated in ways that have shocked allies and alarmed the world. So the question is no longer why Greenland. The real question is, what happens to global geopolitics if this crisis explodes? Greenland is not just ice and snow. It is strategic gold. First, location. Greenland sits between North America, Europe, and the Arctic Ocean. Any missile, aircraft, or satellite system crossing the Arctic passes near Greenland. That's why the U.S. already operates Patuxent Space Base, a critical early warning and missile defense site. Second, resources. As Arctic ice melts, Greenland reveals access to rare earth minerals, oil and gas potential, freshwater reserves. These are resources the world's superpowers desperately want. And third, the Arctic itself. Climate change has turned the Arctic into a new global highway. New shipping routes mean faster trade between Asia, Europe, and North America. Massive economic and military advantages. Whoever controls the Arctic controls the future balance of power. The United States, under renewed assertive leadership, has made it clear Greenland is too important to be left outside direct U.S. control. Statements suggesting buying Greenland, applying economic pressure, even refusing to rule out force, have sent shockwaves through Europe. To Washington, this is national security. To Europe, it sounds like imperial pressure, something NATO was never meant to represent. And that's where the real danger begins. NATO was built on one promise. An attack or threat to one ally is a threat to all. But what happens when one NATO power pressures another? The strongest member acts unilaterally. Denmark is a founding NATO member. Greenland is part of Denmark's kingdom. So if the U.S. uses coercion, economic or military, it creates a crisis inside NATO itself. European leaders, especially France and Germany, are warning that NATO unity is weakening. Trust in U.S. leadership is eroding. And once trust breaks, alliances don't survive long. The Arctic is no longer peaceful. Russia has expanded Arctic military bases, deployed submarines and missile systems. China calls itself a near-Arctic state, investing in infrastructure and research to gain influence. Now, add U.S. Europe tension to the mix. Instead of cooperation, the Arctic risks becoming a militarized zone, a battleground for influence, a flashpoint for miscalculation. One wrong move in the Arctic could escalate faster than conflicts elsewhere because response times are short and communication is fragile. While the West argues, others are watching. Russia sees opportunity. A divided NATO means less pressure on Moscow. Arctic dominance becomes easier. China sees leverage. Economic diplomacy with Europe, positioning itself as a stable alternative to U.S. unpredictability. Even non-aligned nations are taking notes. The message they receive is simple. If alliances can fracture over Greenland, what guarantees exist anywhere else? This weakens the rules-based international order the U.S. helped build after World War II. Threats of tariffs between the U.S. and Europe already signal danger. If tensions escalate, trade wars could return. Supply chains could suffer. Investor confidence could fall. Europe may accelerate efforts to reduce dependence on the U.S., build independent defense and trade systems. Ironically, this could weaken U.S. global economic influence in the long run. There are three possible futures. Keycap 1. Diplomatic reset. The U.S., Denmark, and Greenland negotiate security cooperation without sovereignty pressure. Keycap 2. Cold Arctic standoff. No takeover, but long-term tension, militarization, and mistrust. Keycap 3. Global realignment. Alliances weaken, new blocs form, and the Arctic becomes a permanent flashpoint. History tells us Great power competition rarely stays local. Greenland may look distant, but what happens there affects global security, international law, trade, and the future of alliances. This is not about ice. It's about power, trust, and the rules of the global system. The Arctic is warming, but geopolitics, there's freezing fast. If you found this breakdown helpful, like the video, subscribe, and share. Because the next major global crisis may already be unfolding, just much colder than we expected.